Hello and welcome. My name's Andy Crook, and I'm your host for tonight's training session on Imagine the Best Version of Your Business. My mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business. How I do that is by delivering a short training topic every week on one of the 5 pillars of business as I see them. Today, we're in the planning pillar, and we're talking about imagining the best version of your business. I have some trouble with this whole concept. Even though that it's something that's talked about a lot when it comes to business planning, is is that you're often asked by whoever's coaching you or whoever's trying to get you to fill out some sort of business plan to create a vision of the future. And one of the things they're trying to get you to do is to, or one of the things they ask you to do is to imagine what would the best version of your business look like. And the reason they're trying to do this for, the reason why they're doing this, is because this is the garage owner's version of begin with the end in mind, which is the habit number 2 of Stephen R Covey's great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the idea is that you work backwards from the end and not from the beginning forwards. Because if you know where the destination is, you know the direction of travel, and therefore it gives you some way, a framework on which to hang, if you like, your planning model. But how do you imagine the end? What is the end? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So if I was to ask you to take a minute and close your eyes, don't do that if you're driving, because it might not end well, but to take a minute and close your eyes and imagine the best version of your business, you will come up with one of 3 approximately versions of that business. So just give you a second to sort of just have a think about that if you haven't already. Feels like a long time, doesn't it? A minute. But I'm guessing 3 things would have come into your mind when you imagine the best version of your business. So you've either created a great shiny temple to vehicle repair, not dissimilar to what you would see at a high-end main dealer. Lots of glass, very clean, tile floors. What I'd imagine the best workshop you could possibly imagine could look like. You've either thought, oh, that's what I want, or you might have even done something a bit more modest, a more traditional industrial unit, but inside there, you've probably considered all the tools and all the equipment you've ever wanted, and they're all inside that unit. Or the alternative to that, I suppose, every time I do this exercise, one of these 3 things happens, and the final third, or the third version, is they consider their existing workshop and they try and make that as good as it could be within the constraints of that particular setup. So they're the 3 things. So you've either imagined a shiny temple to vehicle repair, a more modest unit but with all the tools and equipment you've ever wanted, or you've tried to look at how your existing setup could look if everything was as good as it could be. And none of those are wrong, or are they? Well, it depends, isn't it? Because is it enough just to imagine what the best garage is, or the best version of your current garage is, to come up with, if you like, the vision for the future? And in my opinion, what we have to do first is that we have to consider what we want for ourselves personally, then what we want to achieve professionally, and then we can think about building a business to achieve it. This way, we can build a business that serves us, not you serving your business. And that's key at this point, Because if you have imagined the shiny temple to vehicle repair, you might set off on a journey that doesn't actually satisfy your needs. And you might be a slave to that particular vision rather than that vision serving you. So think about this and think about the time frame, because we didn't put a time frame on it before. But think about where you would like to be in 10 years' time. So in in 10 years' time, some people listening to this will want to be retired. They'll have finished their current association with the business. Other people won't be. So, but for them, if we ask them to think about what do you want to do at the end of your working life, it's probably too far away to even start to think about. But we can just about get our heads around a 10-year time frame. So if I was to say to you, what do you want to achieve for yourself and your family in 10 years' time? You could probably come up with a list of things that you would like to have by that time frame. And you would probably start off with something like, what would your income like to be in 10 years from now? What would you like to be earning? What would you have in your savings pot stroke pension? So if you like short term cash to hand savings and investments and your pension, what would that look like? Your housing. You may still be in the same house you live in now, but you may have paid the mortgage. You may have paid the mortgage on the house you live in now, but you've bought a holiday home. That could be in this country or abroad. It doesn't matter. What we're asking you to do is write down your aspirations around these areas. What are your relationship goals? So if you're coming towards the, if you like, the end of your working life, you might be thinking about what's your relationship going to be like with your grandchildren, and how you're going to make time for them and things like that. If you're a little bit earlier into this, should we say, the journey, you might be thinking about getting married and having children. What does that look like? If you're single, you might be thinking about getting into a relationship and being married in 10 years' time. It doesn't really matter where you are. You can sort of project forward to where you want to be in terms of your relationships in 10 years' time. The same can be said about holidays. What is your, if you like, dream holiday that you always wanted to go on? Do you have that aspirational holiday that you would like to go on? Or do you have a number of days you would like to be taking off? What are your holiday plans and what would that look like in 10 years' time? If you're coming up to retirement, what are your retirement goals? Do you want to be working a little bit? Do you want to be working not at all? What's your income going to look like? That sort of thing. If you're not thinking about retirement, you don't have to write anything down there. But you might think about other things such as what car will you be driving in 10 years' time? So you might have an aspiration to own, for example, a high-end sports car. Or you might not. But it's this sort of thing that I'm asking you to think about. To start writing down what it is that you want from life in 10 years' time. And it doesn't have to be linked to the business at this stage. So what rewards do you want to give yourself? And that could be the car you drive, but it could be other things. You may have other, if you like, aspirational objects that you would like to have, or it could simply be the amount of time off you have, or whatever it is. But think about what you would like to achieve for yourself and your family in 10 years' time. And write a little list. They're just some ideas. And then we move on to what we want to achieve professionally. And this is consider ourselves, to begin with, maybe a little bit about what the premises of your business looks like. Now, this might not be what we've started to imagine at the beginning, which was possibly a shiny temple to vehicle repair or a more modest workshop. But what I'm talking about here is, will you own the premises in 10 years' time, or will you still be renting the premises in 10 years' time? It's simply that sort of thing. Will you be in these premises, or won't you be in or do you have a desire to move? How many staff will you have, and how will that staffing mix look? What I'm talking about here is how many technicians, will you have a valeter? Is that your, if you like, your 10-year plan for the business? Is that what that's going to look like? How many front of house staff will you have? Will you have a workshop manager? What will your role be in the business in 10 years' time? And then you might start to think about the type of customers you have. Do you have any specialities within the business or any brands that you want to particularly work on? And they're sort of where you want to be, where you are now isn't necessarily where that will be in 10 years' time. You might be pretty much a general business at the moment, and you want to branch off into some form of speciality. You might be looking at ADAS or something like that, and you think, right, I want to be the town's best known ADAS specialist. That could be your aim. Or you might want to specialize in one brand, for example. Let's just say Mercedes is your dream car, and therefore you'd like to be a Mercedes specialist. You have a background and an affiliation with the brand. That's what you want to be. That's what we write down here. And then you might think about the qualifications that you may hold, but also the qualifications the staff will have. For example, there are many different accredited programs out there, as well as the qualifications for the staff. So we're trying to start thinking here about sort of professional qualifications within the business. And then what tools and equipment would you ideally have within that business in 10 years' time? And they're the sort of things we could write down. Once we've got those two lists, we can then start to think about what do we need to do to achieve that? What is required to make that happen? And often what we start with, we think, right, what sort of turnover would this business require to give me the income, savings, and investment plan that I had for myself personally? What kind of money does that require? And then we start to think about the profit. What sort of profit percentage would we need to achieve that? So we got turnover, profit, and then what will inform that if you think about where you are now and how you want to make your improvements. We've talked about modelling the business in previous training topics. That'll give you an idea of how many staff you need, how many productive staff you need, how many non-productive staff you need. Can you see that we're now starting to, if you like, colour in the picture of what this business looks like? And then we get on to customers. And it'll be the number of customers is required to achieve that kind of turnover, and the type of customer we need to achieve that type of turnover. And we might get a better idea of our ideal customer. But what will that inform is what sort of marketing campaign or marketing strategy we need to achieve that turnover, that profit, to feed this business, to deliver a business that serves you. And then we'll think, once we know how many staff we have, if we need 4 staff to achieve that, and we've only got space for 3 ramps, bit of a problem. So next thing we're going to sort of look at is the space we require. And that will, obviously, what this is going to do is going to explain whether or not can you actually fix your existing workshop to achieve your 10-year goal, or do you need to move somewhere else to a bigger unit, which then moves us quite neatly on to the next one, which is all the equipment. What equipment would you require? If you wanted to be a speciality, and we used the example ADAS earlier, have you got all the latest and greatest ADAS equipment? Because if you haven't, you're going to need that. If you want to be a brand specialist, have you got the special tools to service that brand? And then what you'll come up with then, having looked at all of those criteria to achieve, if you like, what you need for yourself personally and what you need for yourself professionally, what that business starts to look like, is you'll know what sort of investment is required to make that happen. And that is how you start to design, if you like, the best version of your business. It isn't the best version that you could possibly imagine, but it is the best version of a business that could serve you, that will give you the outcomes that you want in 10 years' time. Now, that all feels a little bit abstract. It's like, wow, that's just make-believe. Anyone can write that down. Believe it or not, that's true. But by writing it down, you've taken the first step towards achieving it. If you don't write this down, you haven't got the end in mind. And therefore, every decision, every step you take may not be working towards that end goal. In fact, you could be going in many different directions, rather in the direction towards a success. Notice At no point here, one of my pet hates is pictures of shiny floors. Because I don't know, when we look at all of those things, having the shiniest floor in the UK is going to achieve it. You may want, when we start talking about what you want to achieve professionally, is the perception or reputation of that, of your company and how that looks. And yes, you might want it to be clean and tidy and spotless, but that isn't, if you like, a starting point for making a business better. That's the starting point for you serving your business, not your business serving you. So the next thing you need to once you've written these down and you've got this idea of what you would like to achieve for yourself and your family, what you would like to achieve personally, and what that requires, the business that you need to build to do that. Think about the next 12 months and then go back to what you want to achieve for yourselves and look at that income goal for in 10 years time, and then go, well, what do I need to change the income to next year? And then you have the starting point for coming up with a plan. And then you can look at your savings and the pension. How much do I need to save? What housing goals do I have? Do I need to start looking for a house? What does that require in terms of income to achieve that? So if you want to move to a bigger house, you probably need more wages than you taking out of the business as a business owner to get that mortgage. All of those things start to add together and you start to come up with a coherent plan to achieve your goals. So then once you've looked at your 12-month plan, you can look at the next 3 years. And I like the planning cycle of 3, 3, 3 plus 1. So we do a 3-year cycle followed by a 3-year cycle followed by a 3-year cycle to achieve our 10-year plan. However, that's only 9 years, so we have a spare year, a fallback, if you like, so that if something happens, like a COVID or anything like that, or we have a particular disastrous year, we can kind of write one off within the 9-year period and still achieve what we want to within 10 years. It's a sort of fail-safe, a fallback. However, if we don't need it, we'll just achieve our 10-year aim or vision earlier than we needed to. So it's something to think about, because we often get asked to imagine the best version of our business when it comes to business planning and creating a vision for the future. But I reckon it'd be better if what we did was looked at what we wanted for ourselves, what we needed to get, or what we wanted to achieve professionally, and then looked at that criteria and then built a business or designed a business that in 10 years' time would satisfy all those needs. So the atomic action for this week is simply this. Remember that you are the star of your own movie. And that's why you must build the business that serves you, not you serve your business. If I've made you think even a little bit about business planning, then I've probably done my job. If not, I'll try better next time. Thanks for listening. Take care.